It is the 11th day of October. Very good evening to you. Good to see you. Welcome to KTN Prime. I'm Linda Oguttu. Our sign language interpreter there at the bottom end of your screen is William Sila. Sila, thank you so much. Now, let's begin with controversy over the construction of the Northern Collector Tunnel project that has now turned into a war of words. Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria has dismissed claims by court leader Raila Odinga that the project meant to draw water from 3 rivers risks turning 5 counties into deserts. Wairia has also denied that the county assembly and other area leaders ever opposed that project, despite existence of records to the contrary. Rita Tinina has just returned from Murang'a with that story.
In Makomboki area of Murang'a County, construction technology at its best, with the Northern Collector Tunnel taking shape. Already, a 110-meter stretch of the 11.7-kilometer tunnel is in place. Water Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa and Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria paid a visit to the construction site just a day after court leader Raila Odinga stirred the waters over the 6.8 billion shilling World Bank funded project meant to draw water from rivers Irati, Ikigi and Maragua into the Ndakaini Dam for consumption in Nairobi.
Larger Murang'a, Garissa and Ukambani and Tana River Delta region will be deserts within 5 years of this project being implemented.
The Murang'a County government has fired back, dismissing Raila's claims that the project was being conducted in secrecy and that an environmental impact assessment has not been carried out.
There is a due process of doing impact assessment certification. The process is clearly defined. It is step by step, and it is mandatory. So this is not a political issue of whether you want this to happen and to happen when.
But it has now emerged that the project had come up before the Murang'a County Assembly in December 2014, and members of the Assembly then were jittery about the project over, among other issues, the social and environmental impact, lack of public participation, and benefits to the residents of Murang'a. A report by the Water, Energy, Forestry and Natural Resources Committee commissioned by the County Assembly over the project proposed that the implementation of the whole project be suspended until all matters raised are fully addressed. Now the governor says the Assembly was not initially opposed to the project.
The people of Murang'a raised a question. They said, as we supply water to Nairobi, we also need to be convinced that the people of Murang'a will also benefit in terms of supply of water from the project.
As an assembly, we were not opposed to the project. As an assembly, what we wanted is clarification on whether all the due process has been followed upon the project.
The governor would not elaborate what exact issues from the committee's recommendations were resolved.
We are still furthering that conversation. So what we are saying is that it is a continuous process on how we need to benefit.
In a statement, Raila Odinga, reacting to Mwangi wa Iria, asked the governor to stand up for the people of Murang'a. On Monday, Jubilee leaders accused Raila of opposing the same project he launched in 2012.
And we all know that this project was Raila's baby. It is a project that the Jubilee government has adopted. And it's not the only project. All Vision 2030 projects have been prioritized by the Jubilee government.
Controversy over the Northern Collector Tunnel is not just about the environment. Political and financial issues over compensation surround the project, one of the government's biggest initiatives to try and solve Nairobi's perennial water problems. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
So that story by Rita Tinina, of course, has generated quite a lot of controversy. And as I earlier mentioned, Mwangi wa Iria has also denied that the county assembly and other area leaders ever opposed that project. Question is that true or false? Let me tell you what happened in 2015. The presser yesterday by court leader Raila Odinga is not the first time that a conversation was being had about this particular tunnel. In May 2015, the Murang'a County Assembly adopted a motion seeking to suspend the construction of this particular tunnel. That was in May 2015. And back then, the chair of the Committee of Water and Natural Resources, Joseph Mushiri, asked the board to implement the project with caution to ensure water levels in the rivers would not get affected. That was not the only concern that Joseph had with respect to this tunnel. He said irrigation and other water programs initiated by the county government may be adversely affected by that tunnel, putting in mind that this is a county that heavily depends on agriculture. The last issue that he raised, he said the county solely depends on agricultural activities, like I mentioned before, and that implementation of the project will be a setback to its economy. That was back in 2015 when the Murang'a County Assembly raised pertinent issues with respect to the Northern Water Collector Tunnel. They're not the only individuals who raised concern about this tunnel. So that was the Murang'a County Assembly. Back then as well in 2015, the Kiara MCA David Muhoro raised similar concerns as well. He's also a member of the Murang'a County Assembly. He said the project should be stopped until all residents get access to piped water. Excuse the typo. He wanted all the residents to have access to piped water. Remember, some leaders are on record saying all they want is that their people should be able to have access to this water that is essentially supposed to be supplied to the entire Nairobi. He went on to say, and I quote, "People living around Akaini Dam are already strained because they cannot access rivers, and the tunnel would worsen the lives of those depending on the rivers." 2015, this conversation was already being had at the Murang'a County Assembly. So apart from the Murang'a County Assembly, we also had Kembe Gitura, who's the Murang'a Senator and Deputy Speaker in the Senate, writing about this particular tunnel. That as well was in 2015. So that, actually he wrote that, I think, in the Business Daily. And he said back then all stakeholders in Murang'a County decided to come up with a technical committee. So this technical committee was essentially supposed to look at this entire project and give recommendations on what their thoughts were. So in the Business Daily, in that opinion, Kembe Gitura says the technical committee came up with its final report. And first of all, they said the tunnel will seriously affect aquifers lying between Three Rivers and Ndakaini Dam. That was one. Two, he went on to say the tunnel will have serious environmental and other effects on the said rivers, and more so on the people living downstream. The people living downstream are not just the people of Murang'a. They're people who live in other counties but then depend on some of the rivers in Murang'a. Remember, CORD leader Raila Odinga picked out quite a number of areas. He talked about Ukambani region, and he also talked about Garissa, the areas that depend on Tana River. All right, so Kembe Gitura went on finally to say extraction of the water will cause water shortage to an already thirsty region. So one, you have the Murang'a County Assembly raising concerns, and then two, you have Kembe Gitura, who is the Deputy Speaker of the Senate, also raising pertinent questions with respect to the Northern Water Collector Tunnel. So that story forms the basis of a big question tonight on KTN Prime. We're asking you, do you think Raila's involvement has made it impossible for the matter to be considered objectively? Do you think Raila's involvement in the whole matter has made it impossible for the matter to be considered objectively? Leader of Majority Eden Duale has already spoken about it. Mwangi Oiria has also talked about it as well. So there are those analysts who seem to think that this has now degenerated into a political war of some sort between CORD and, of course, Jubilee. There are those who are saying maybe if it had come from a different party, it would be looked at objectively. So that is the question that we're asking tonight. Let us know what you think. Tweet us at KTN News. Tweet me at Linda Oguttu at KTN Kenya. Would love to hear from you on what your thoughts are with respect to that tunnel. Right, so in a few minutes we will be having a conversation about this as well, because it's very important that we clear the air for you and speak to an analyst, an expert, so to speak, hydrology and water expert who will be speaking to us from our city center studio. That is Professor George Crowder, very well versed with issues of this magnitude, so we'll speak to him in a few minutes. Let's move on now. On the sentencing to death of Jennifer Wanjiru, a trader in illicit brew, yesterday by the High Court has raised a lot of reactions. And today our reporter Timothy Otieno traveled to Kiambu to speak to the residents of Gitambaya village in Ruiru, where 5 of the 8 killed by the liquor hail from. The residents praised the courts for sentencing Wanjiru to death. Take a look.
What has been termed as a landmark ruling by Judge Jesse Lesit to have Jennifer Wanjiru sentenced to death for the murder of 5 individuals may not have come as a surprise to the residents of this rather sleepy neighborhood in the outskirts of Ruiru town. For it is here that months ago, residents, with the help of area police, embarked on a massive onslaught against the trade of illicit brew that in September 2011 saw more than 7 individuals lose their lives from consuming the methanol-laced drinks. The victims included Jen Wambua Kamau, David Karanja Ndwati, Samuel Waweru Wanjiku, Julius Karioki Mwangi, Festus David Nzuki, James Muita Wanjiku, and Joseph Ndichu Kamau. For 39-year-old Lucy Wanjiru, the loss of her husband James Muita has meant that she now has to work twice as hard to feed their 2 children.
Tunasikia uchungu juu ya mabwana zetu, watoto wetu, na wengine wamepotea macho. Kwa hivyo tunasikia uchungu sana. Kama saizi nasaidiwa na nani, hii nyumba sijalipa. Inafungwa. Saizi hata kutoka asubuhi sijakula. Naenda kibarua ya shilingi 100 ndio nipate chakula. 100 ni watoto nitapea ama ni nguo ama ni sure ama ni nini?
It's a narrative that reflects 30-year-old Mary Mwende's situation. Her husband of more than 7 years, David Nzuki, passed away after consuming the liquor sold by Jennifer Wanjiru and has now left her with the burden of educating 2 children without a stable job. Nearly every household here has a story to tell of the effects illicit brew is having on individual lives. Many say Monday's ruling to have Jennifer sentenced to death could not have come at a better time.
Hakuna roho na roho. Nikitoa roho yako na yangu, sote siko same, si ndio? Kwa hiyo yeye kuondoka kwake ni aondolewe mbele ya raia.
The scourge of visual impairment caused by drinking from the wells of the cheap and very popular drink did not spare David Mwaura's son, who lost his sight at the same liquor joint where Jennifer made her trade. He, however, was lucky to escape with his life.
Hakutaka nielewe. Aliniambia alienda huko na hakunywa. Muda kitu kama hapa nawa akaanza kuchinja tabia. Nikimpatia kitu anachukua upande banda chukue straight. Yaani macho inaanza kupotea.
2 years ago, the Kenyan government embarked on a massive crackdown of all illegal liquor dens after the death of 70 people in central Kenya.
Pombe hiyo na nyinyi nyote mnajua imetumalizia watoto wetu, imemaliza famili nyingi na imesababisha vijana wetu wawe hawawezi kazi ya kujiinua na kulinda familia zao.
We have to change. It's not must that we go to on TV telling people to change. You yourself and your friend, you have to change. When you're seeing that we are taking the bad thing, you have to stop it. Because we want to make a new life again.
Jennifer faced 8 counts of murder but was convicted for the death of 5 people despite her plea that the judge show her leniency as she was a first-time offender and sole breadwinner to her family. The sentencing of Mama Flora, as she was popularly known in these parts of Ruiru town, has come as a relief to the residents here who insists that her sale of illicit brew was robbing them of the next generation of Kenyans. But they can be rest assured that despite the fact that their loved ones may no longer be with them anymore that they trust that the justice system stands with them in their fight against illicit brew. Timothy Otieno, KTN News in Ruiru, Kiambu County.
Nyando, Member of Parliament, will spend a night in police custody. The MP who was arrested this afternoon is being accused of inciting students of Ahero girls who went on rampage demanding the reinstatement of their principal, Sarah Odipo. Rashid Ronald has this story.
The Nyando MP will now have to spend at least a night in remand thanks to the chaos at the Ahero Girls Secondary School that saw him allegedly roughed up by police officers at the school last evening. The students were at it once again Tuesday morning, demanding the reinstatement of their principal, Sarah Odipo.
To come here and rescue me from the thugs that were hired in the name of police officers.
And when the MP arrived, he demanded to be told why police had roughed him up Monday night at the school.
When I came here to find out what is going on, I found the kids were all over and their lives were in danger. The police were beating these young girls in this room.
And he seemed to have ignited more fire with teachers shouting him down. A bitter exchange ensued between him and an official of the Kenya National Union of Teachers.
And now to a compromise to bring a relative of the DC at this school at night to take over this school. Is that the right channel to be done, even if you want somebody to come here at this school? So what I'm saying, as a member of parliament elected by the people, these are smaller menace. I'm going to deal with them accordingly.
I have never been paid by anybody whatsoever. But we are saying this. Ahero is bigger than any politician.
Later, the MP rushed to Ahero police station to record a statement of a Monday night incident. But before he could finish with the police here, police officers from the quick response team from Kisumu arrived and bundled him into a waiting car and drove him to the Kisumu law courts. And back at the Ahero Girls, students were on their way home thanks to the fracas that caused the closure of the school.
Rashid Ronald, KTN News, Ahero, in the county of Kisumu.
Let's now turn our attention to that conversation that is being held in the country with respect to the Northern Collector Tunnel project that has sort of degenerated into a political war of some sort, and try to get the facts for you because that's why we are here. So let's speak to George Crowder from our City Center studio. He's a hydrology and water expert. Sir, good evening. Thank you for speaking to us on KTN Prime. We've had lots of allegations being made about this particular project. Opposition leader Raila Odinga coming out with very many allegations on what exactly this project will do. We've had responses from the Murang'a County listening into the back and forth. What goes through your mind with respect to this project?
Thank you very much for having me. I would like to lay some basis of the need for water in this region. The Northern Water Collector is not a new item in the water development planning for Nairobi. It has existed in the books for a long time. It is just that now it is being implemented. Secondly, let me mention that at the current situation, the water situation in Nairobi, there is a deficit of between 120 and 140,000 cubic meters per day. And that is a current rate. It means that by 2017, there will be a deficit of slightly more than 280,000 cubic meters per day. Now, the Northern Water Collector is basically meant to supply this deficit. And thirdly, the water is not just for Nairobi. It's going to supply 13 other satellite satellite towns, including Ngong, Kitengela, and other small towns around Nairobi. So it's quite an important project in terms of...
It's a noble project, so to speak.
Yes, please.
Okay. So what about the concerns that are being raised by opposition leader Raila Odinga? You're very well versed in this.
Now, this is a fairly complex project. It has 3 phases. The first phase will deal with the tunneling, which has started. The second phase will deal with the piping and also the development of infrastructure. And the third phase will be wastewater treatment for Nairobi. It just means that additional water into Nairobi will require additional treatment and as well as additional wastewater treatment. And so it is a very elaborate project and very difficult to understand in terms of its complexity because of the new constitutional arrangement as well as the issues around the county development.
So the issues are complex, but then the concern is the allegation that is being made by opposition leader Raila Odinga. It's a noble cause, it is complex, but then Raila Odinga says that if not well carried out, then there are areas that will become deserts in 5 years. I think that is where the concern is coming in.
I may not be in a position to comment on the exact issues that Honorable Raila raised because one needs to look at the environmental impact assessment report, which is a very voluminous text, and also the fact that NEMA had given the go-ahead for the project to be implemented. Secondly, Water Resources Management Authority also had okayed the project to proceed. And these are the regulatory authorities in charge of ensuring that the project is implemented in a sustainable manner. So I won't go into the details of the suggestion
the
whether there will be I won't go into that details unless I see the documents.
Okay, putting in mind the different conversation that has been had, of course, by the Murang'a County government, we have heard from leader of majority and we've heard as well from the opposition. In your mind and where you sit, do you think that maybe this project needs to be stopped just for a while until some of these issues are probably addressed?
No, development is an ongoing issue. I wouldn't suggest that the project be stopped, but the dialogue must continue to iron out some of the difficulties or the challenges that may be facing. I think the initial challenge was that Murang'a as a county needed to know what benefits they would be obtaining from this, and that dialogue went on very smoothly, and my thinking is that that debate was completed already with the Murang'a County government. Now, in terms of the other counties that may be affected, these are downstream counties because the Tana River is such a big basin and involve several counties downstream. Whether these counties may be affected needs some discussion, but I won't outrightly suggest that there will be a desert or any situation change. Moreover, the situation is that the planning was done to only tap the flood waters of these 3 rivers. So if it is limited to 3 rivers, to the flood waters, then the question may be that is it a worthwhile investment? I think that could be the only economic question that I may raise at this point.
All right, Professor George Crowder, hydrology and water expert, thank you for speaking to us as we try to make sense of the Northern Collector Tunnel project that has now degenerated into a war of words, so to speak. Thank you, sir, for joining us from our City Center studio. Let's move on now. President Uhuru Kenyatta has set in motion the process of recruiting new commissioners of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission after he appointed 9 nominees to the IEBC selection panel. The 9-member committee comprises 5 nominees from religious organizations and 4 from the Parliamentary Service Commission. Religious organizations nominated National Council of Churches of Kenya, Secretary General Revered Canon Peter Karanja, Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims Chairman Abdul Ghaffar El Busaidi, and Bernadette Musudi to represent the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops. Others are Bishop David Oginde representing the Evangelical Churches of Kenya and Rajesh Rawal for the Hindu Council of Kenya. The Parliamentary Service Commission forwarded the names of Evans Monari and Mary Keegan to represent the ruling Jubilee Coalition, while the court will be represented by Justice retired Tom Baluto and Ogla Chepkemoi Karani. The selection panel shall, within 7 days of its appointment, invite applications from qualified persons and publish the names of all applicants and their qualifications. Kenyans traveling to South Africa may continue facing same challenges they have been encountering in the past after South African President Jacob Zuma remained non-committal on President Uhuru Kenyatta's request that Kenyans be allowed to apply for visa upon arrival. And as Duncan Haemba reports, the silence on the matter by President Zuma surprised many.
Yes.
The visit by South African President Jacob Zuma was expected to bring with it glad tidings with regard to the persistent visa headache for Kenyans, and President Uhuru Kenyatta had his hopes high.
We have also agreed to consider our request that Kenyan nationals, and we are grateful for that, be granted visa on arrival, and this is something that the South African government will look into, because this is a privilege that Kenya already extends to South African nationals coming to Kenya.
A request that was not responded to explicitly by President Zuma.
Before we reach that stage, there are relations between countries like Kenya and South Africa, and that issue has featured in our discussion of how do we move forward between the two countries to allow the movement of goods and people to happen. Of course, we have to deal with a lot of things that the president called obstacles that we need to remove, because we can't do it at a go.
Kenya's quest to lobby for South Africa's support for the candidacy of Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed to succeed outgoing AU Commission's chair Nkosazana Zuma, President Zuma's ex-wife, is also seemingly not making much headway. But Zuma was requested to lobby for Kenya among the Southern Africa states, since one of the SADC member states, Botswana, has also fronted a candidate for the position. However, Kenya is banking on the fact that with the outgoing AU Commission chair having come from the same region, Kenya being an EAC member state should be supported to get the position.
South Africa and Kenya are important actors on the continental stage and carry particularly heavy responsibilities in helping shape the policies that drive the continent.
On his part, President Zuma said Africa is greatly concerned about the unrest in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi and South Sudan, calling for measures to stop the political chaos.
We condemn the recent call by the SPLM in opposition under Dr. Riek Machar for a popular armed resistance against the government in Juba. There is absolutely no need for fighting.
Both presidents agreed to champion African Union's push to have key reforms at UN institutions. It is a first-ever state visit by a South African head of state, and despite the two leaders acknowledging the important role that Kenya and South Africa play on the continental stage, failure to talk about the candidature of CS Amina Mohamed explains why the stakes could be high as she seeks to be the new AU Commission's chairperson. Duncan Haemba, KTN News, State House.
Welcome back. Time for business. The Kenya Airline Pilots Association, KALPA, has issued a strike notice yet again as members demand the resignation of the Kenya Airways Chief Executive Officer. KALPA add that with the current state of the airline, there is no hope that the airline will be out of turbulence anytime soon, and the sooner action is taken, the better for the pride of Africa. Airline Pilots Association KALPA pilots will down their tools in protest over what they've described as poor management at the national carrier Kenya Airways beginning October 18, which is Tuesday next week. Air passengers with flights scheduled for departure as early as 5 a.m. are likely to be interrupted come next week. The Pilots Association says that while they're open to negotiations, they're cognizant of the fact that there is an alleged vacuum in leadership at the national carrier's management. The union's Secretary General Captain Paul Gishinga on Tuesday said, and I quote, "We have no confidence in the airline's recovery. Over 10,000 passengers fly on board airline Kenya Airways daily, and this strike is likely to affect passengers on connecting flights in transit to various destinations around the world." In September, the national carrier management made an announcement that it was seeking foreign institutional investors to raise 70 billion shillings in debt and equity as recommended by consultant PJT Partners. But the airline's woes, according to the fire-breathing pilots, is not just a money problem, but also a confidence challenge, as they add that the airline has lost a large number of pilots and engineers to rival airlines over the last 12 months. Analysts are pointing out that the Kenya Early Oil Pilot Project is financially unviable from the start and could even disadvantage the local communities and the country if it continues in its current form. A consortium of non-governmental organizations says that as currently constituted, there is no economic justification to carry out the pilot project, and added that there was suspect haste in the whole process.
We believe that in the absence of an increase in the oil price or export volumes, the scheme is a money-losing venture. The benefits for us are very minimal. Even the idea of getting additional reservoir data is very slim, because the wells that are going to be used are the ones which we have the most information on. Ngamia and Amosing are some of the wells which already have most of the data on around. And the sunken costs in retrofitting the refinery and jetty. These are critical because they will not be used after the scheme. So this is just money that will go and will not be used in the future. And so it's to us just a colossal waste of money, to be honest. And transparency remains critical of all policy decisions. The platform and its members remain committed to pushing for transparency in the sector and interrogating all policy that comes up, so that we just do not have certain people making decisions on behalf of a resource that is a national resource that we all look to benefit from.
The Nairobi Securities Exchange, NSC, in conjunction with Smart Youth, CASNEB, and NIC Securities today awarded winners of the 2016 NSC Investment Challenge. This year's winner, Franklin Tour, walked away with a cash prize of 300,000 Kenya shillings after making a 1.8 million Kenya shilling profit from the virtual startup capital worth 3 million Kenya shillings invested in the NSC's real-time information system. First runners-up, Joshua Munyao from Kenyatta University, won 150,000 shillings, and winners walked away with cash prizes based on their research on reasons to trade, as well as their participation in the securities discussion forums. Speaking during the awards ceremony at the Exchange House in Nairobi, CEO of NSC, Geoffrey Odundo, said that the challenge has educated over 100,000 youth, and winners have the opportunity of receiving internships at the NSC. And online marine insurance portal has actually also been put up. And of course, the National Bank of Kenya as well has got a new chief executive. Who could that be? Let's find out in our business wrap.
Local importers and logistics firms can now insure their cargo faster and from anywhere, following the launch of an online marine insurance portal by Kenya Orient Insurance Limited. Speaking at the launch ceremony, Kenya Orient Managing Director Mwema Mwindi said the Orient Marine Cargo Portal is aimed at providing an efficient platform for importers and logistics firms to manage cargo risks from point of origin to the final destination. Meanwhile, Samia Agriculture and Livestock Limited is set to open a 3 billion shillings milk factory in Kenya this year, in a move expected to raise competition in the fast-growing dairy sector. The dairy processing plant, to be set up in Nakuru, will employ an estimated 500 people and be operational by June next year. Milk processors have lately unlocked significant investments, with billionaire investors queuing to pump big money into the dairy industry. And finally, in banking matters, National Bank of Kenya has confirmed acting boss Wilfred Mutuku Musau as the chief executive of the lender for a 5-year term. Musau is expected to push talks on getting a 4.4 billion shillings shareholder loan from the National Social Security Fund and the Treasury to help recapitalize the bank.
And that's it for KTN Business. Up next is KTN Sports. My name is Joy Doreen Bira.
Western Steamer forward Wesley Kemboi has bagged the Sport Pesa September Player of the Month award. Kemboi beat Gor Mahia's George Blackberry Odhiambo and Alan Wanga by a big margin, of course, in a vote conducted by football writers as well. The initial list of nominees had 3 players from Western Steamer, indicates that the industry among players from Henry Omino's stable. Muguna and defender Joash Onyango, however, failed to get into the 3 main shortlists, leaving Kemboi to battle Wanga and Odhiambo.
For that vision. I check.
Nimefurahia sababu naweza sema ni kwa sababu ya ile bidii, but ile bidii haikuja bure, ni kwa sababu ya yake Mwenyezi Mungu, ile kuamini ya kwamba bila yeye hauwezi ukafanya kitu, but ukimweka Mungu mbele na uweke bidii, at least naona ni hiyo ndio inafanya kuwa mimi kuichukua ama kuonekana kama mchezaji bora wa mwezi.
Ndio. Msimu huu kuna zile zimekuwa low moments, high moments, na hii imekuwa one of your best moments. Sijui wewe kama Kemboi, kama one of the veterans kwa team, motisha hii imekusaidiaje na imekuaje kwenye team?
Okay, kwangu mimi naona imenisaidia sana, especially upande wa team, hiyo umoja, pia kuweka mwenye.
The national under-23 women's team is aiming to copy the senior team's success in her quest for the African Championships that will take place in Nairobi later this month. The team, which is in camp at the Kasarani Gymnasium, is hoping to secure a ticket to the World Championships in Slovenia. Robinson Okenye paid them a visit and filed the following report.
As the countdown to this year's Africa Women's Under-23 Championship continues, the Kenya national women's team is making sure of tidying up her preparations for the showpiece, which will take place in Nairobi. The team, which is made of youngsters drawn from a number of top clubs in the country, are seeking to emulate the success that has been synonymous to the senior team in the African Championships.
I think we should be able to meet our fans' expectations and the Kenyans as a whole, because I believe these girls, if they do what they have been taught during training, they can do wonders during the championship.
We are going in with our sides. Since we are in home, we have support from our Kenyans and we are putting a lot of efforts.
With 5 more other teams expected to take part in the tournament, head coach Catherine Mabu is wary of the North African teams that will be taking part in the tournament as a threat to Kenya taking part in the World Championships.
Of course, tough matches because this is a qualifying tournament and everybody is coming to take that slot to go to the World Championship. So it's not going to be easy.
Tafanya tushinde
kufuata tu maagizo yenye tunapewa na coach, tupeleke kwa game. Tusikue tunafanya tu kwa mazoezi, ikifika kwa game ikatae.
Having played a number of friendly matches against top clubs in the country, the tactician is also looking forward to making sure her charges are mentally prepared for the tournament.
Working on their mental strength, it's very important. As a player, if you are not mentally strong, it becomes very difficult for you to perform.
The tournament serves off on the 23rd to the 27th of October.
With only a few weeks left before the African Under-23 Championships here in Nairobi, these young ladies keep shining their armor with the hope that they will come on top during the championships. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.